Happy Founders Day, everybody. Whether you are in person or attending remotely, welcome students, faculty, families, and other Declamation fans to the 35th Thayer Academy Declamation Celebration. Unlike past years, when we had a single performance, this one is the last of 3 different performances. A COVID accommodation allowing us to continue live performance, but with a smaller audience. I am Mr. Harrison, one of the 8th grade English teachers. Fellow 8th grade English teacher, Miss Gordon, and I will introduce our declamations and declaimers. The short introductions we will give before each performance are designed to help you focus on what's to come. I'll now introduce our first declaimer. One American college basketball player, coach, and broadcaster shared some inspiration at an awards dinner in his honor a few weeks before he died of bone cancer. Declan Harrington will share with us this man's joyful perspective.
Don't Give Up, Don't Ever Give Up by Jim Galvano. Thank you very much. Now, I'm battling cancer, everybody knows that. And people ask me all the time, how do you go through your life and how's your day? To me, there are 3 things we should do every day. We should do these every day of our lives. Number 1 is laugh. You should laugh every day. Number 2 is think. You should spend some time in thought. And number 3 is have your emotions move to tears. Could be happiness or joy. But think about that. If you laugh, you think, and you cry, that's a full day. That's a heck of a day. You do that 7 days a week, you're going to have something special. I always have to think about the 3 things that are important to me in life. Where you started, where you are, and where you're going to be. When I think about getting up here and giving a speech like this, I can't help it. I have to think about the first speech I ever gave. I was coaching at Rutgers University. It was my first job, and I was fired up about my first job. Who doesn't like the very first job you had? The very first time you stood in the locker room to give a pep talk. That's a special place, the locker room, for a coach to give a pep talk. So my idol as a coach was Vince Lombardi, and I read this book called Commitment to Excellence by Vince Lombardi. In the book, Lombardi talks about the first time he spoke before his Green Bay Packers team. Lombardi, he said, should it be a long talk or a short talk? He wanted it to be emotional, so it would be brief. What he said he did was, he didn't go in the locker room, he waited. His manager telling him he has to go in. Not yet, not yet. 3 minutes before the team can take the field, Lombardi comes in, bangs open the door, walks back and forth, staring at his players, and finally says, gentlemen, we will be successful this year if we can focus on 3 things and 3 things only. I said, that's beautiful. I'm going to do that. Family, religion, Rutgers basketball. I had it. The manager tells me you have to go in. I say, not yet, not yet. 3 minutes before the team takes the field. I come in, try to make like Lombardi, and bang open the door. Boom. I almost break my hand. I get up now, and finally I do like Lombardi. Gentlemen, we will be successful this year if we can focus on 3 things and 3 things only. Your family, your religion, and the Green Bay Packers. I said that. I remember that. I remember where I came from. I have one last thing. I urge all of you to enjoy the precious moments of your life you have left. To spend, you save some laughter, some thought, and to get your emotions going. We are starting the Jimmy V Foundation for Cancer Research. And the motto is, don't give up, don't ever give up. And that's what I'm going to do every moment that I have left. Thank you, and God bless you all.
When do you start learning about your gender? Do you ever feel as if you have to conform to a set of expectations? Grace Wainwright will share with us an excerpt from a novel, When a Character Faced These Questions.
An excerpt from the novel The Rules for Being a Girl by Candace Boonshell and Katie Cantuna. It starts before you can remember. You learn. As surely as you learn to walk and talk, the rules for being a girl. You're a princess. You are daddy's little girl. Are you ticklish? Give him a hug. You're sweet, aren't you? You're a good little girl. You don't remember those early days, but here's what you do remember. You remember ballet class, the way your tummy stretched out your pink leotard, and your parents started over some future eating disorder. Then you were trying tap, or soccer, or what about a musical instrument? You remember we just want you to be happy. And you remember you said you were happy because you knew that's what they wanted to hear. How long have you been saying what everyone else wants to hear? Time went on, and girls can do anything, so speak up. I can't hear you. But also, manners, young lady. A boy is following you at school, stand up for yourself. A boy is following you at school, he's just trying to get your attention. Do you like sparkles and unicorns and everything pink? Oh, that's stupid now. Can you play in this game? Sorry, no girls allowed. Put a little color in your face, shave your legs, don't wear too much makeup. Don't distract the boys by wearing bodysuits or spaghetti straps or knee socks. Don't distract the boys. Don't be one of the girls who can't eat pizza. You're getting the milkshake too? Well, have you gained weight? Don't get so skinny your curves disappear. Don't get too curvy you aren't skinny. Don't take up too much space. It's just about your health. Be funny, but don't hog the spotlight. Be smart, but you have a lot to learn. Don't be a doormat, but God, don't be bossy. Be chill, be easygoing. Act like one of the guys. Don't actually act like one of the guys. Be a feminist, support the sisterhood. Don't be easy, don't give up, don't be cold. Don't put him in the friend zone, don't act desperate. Don't let things get too far. Don't give him the wrong idea. Don't blame him for trying, don't walk alone at night. Don't worry, but calm down, don't worry so much. Smile. Remember, girls, the best time in the history of the world to be you. You can do anything, you can do everything. You can be whatever you want to be, just as long as you follow the rules.
The State of the Union Address, delivered to Congress in January 1941, less than a year before the United States entered World War II, outlines 4 freedoms. Listen for each as Michael Scully shares this presidential address.
FDR for freedom speech. The nation takes great satisfaction and much strength from the things which have been done to make its people conscious of their individual state and the preservation of democratic life in America. These things have toughened the fiber of our people, have renewed their faith, and strengthened their devotion to the institutions we make ready to protect. Certainly, this is no time for any of us to stop thinking about the social and economic problems which are the root cause of the social revolution which is today a supreme factor in this world. For there is nothing mysterious about the foundations of a healthy and strong democracy. The basic things expected by our people of their political and economic systems are simple. They are freedom of opportunity for youth and others, jobs for those who can work, security for those who need it, the fruits of scientific knowledge, the fruits of scientific knowledge for everyone, everywhere in the world. If Congress maintains these principles, the voters, putting patriotism ahead of pocketbooks, will give you their applause. Certainly, the 4 freedoms. In future days, which we seek to make secure, we look forward to a world founded upon 4 essential human freedoms. They are freedom of speech and expression everywhere in the world, freedom for everyone to worship God in his own way everywhere in the world, freedom from want, which, translated into world terms, means a healthy and strong democracy, and which will provide a healthy peacetime for everyone and their inhabitants. The 4th is freedom from fear, which, translated into world terms, means a worldwide reduction of armaments, which will provide to such point in such thorough fashion that no nation will be in a position to commit any act of violence. This is no vision of a distant millennium. This is a kind of world attainable by our own time and our own generation. To that high concept there can be no end, save victory.
The following is one that all 8th graders will read this spring, since it is an important component of Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451. The poem's ocean imagery is rich, and we can simply enjoy that just for that. But in this poem, we see that the ocean is also a symbol that calls us to confront the poem on a more existential level. Consider all this as Townsend Elwin shares one of the poet's greatest contributions of poetry.
Dover Beach by Matthew Arnold. The sea is calm tonight. The tide is full. The moon lies fair upon the straits. On the French coast, the light gleams and is gone. The cliffs of England stand, glimmering and vast, out in the tranquil bay. Come to the window, sweet is the night air. Only from the long line of spray, where the sea meets the moon-blanched land, listen. You hear the grating roar of pebbles, which the waves draw back and fling at their return up the high strand, with tremulous cadence slow, and bring the eternal note of sadness in. Sophocles long ago heard this on the Aegean, and it brought into his mind the turbid ebb and flow of human misery. We find also in this sound the thought of hearing this by this distant northern sea. The sea of faith was once too, at the full and round earth's shore, lay like the folds of the bright girdle furled, but now I only hear its melancholy, long, withdrawing roar, retreating into the breath of the night wind down the vast edges drear and naked shingles of the world. Oh, love, let us be true to one another in this land that seems to be laid out before us like a land of dreams, so various, so beautiful, so new. Hath really neither joy, nor love, nor light, nor certitude, nor peace, nor help or pain. For here we are on this darkling plain, confused with alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies flash by night.
On September 11th, 2001, America was attacked. The country awaited a response. Morgan McCarthy will share it with us.
George W. Bush, 9/11 Address to the Nation. Good evening. Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, and our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. Victims were in airplanes or in their offices. Secretary businessmen and women, military and federal workers, moms and dads, friends and neighbors. Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of terror. The pictures of airplanes flying into buildings, fires burning, and huge structures collapsing have filled us with disbelief, terrible sadness, and a quite unyielding anger. These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat, but they have failed. Our country is strong. A great people has been moved to defend a great nation. Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel, but they cannot touch the steel of America's resolve. America is targeted for attack because we're the brightest beacon for freedom and opportunity in the world. And no one will keep that light from shining. Today, our nation saw evil, the very worst of human nature, and we responded with the best of America, with the daring of rescue workers and caring for strangers and neighbors who came to give blood and help in any way they could. Immediately following the first attack, I implemented our government's emergency response plans. Our military is powerful and is prepared. Our emergency teams are working in New York City and Washington, D.C. to help with local rescue efforts. Our first priority is to get help to those who have been injured and to take every precaution to protect citizens at home and around the world from further attack. The function of government continues without interruption. Federal agencies in Washington, which had to be evacuated today, are opening for emergency personnel tonight and will be open for business tomorrow. Federal institutions remain strong, and the American economy will be open for business as well. The search is underway for those who are behind these evil acts. I direct the full resources of our intelligence and law enforcement communities to find those responsible and to bring them to justice. We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them. I appreciate so very much the members of Congress who joined me in condemning these acts. And on behalf of the American people, I appreciate the many world leaders who called to offer their condolences and assistance. America, our friends and allies, join with all those who want peace and security in the world, and we stand to win the war against terrorism. Tonight, I ask for your prayers, for all those who grieve, for the children whose worlds have been shattered, for all whose sense of safety and security have been threatened. And I ask, they would be comforted by a power greater than any of us, spoken through the ages in Psalm 23. Even though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. This is the day where Americans from every walk of life unite in our resolve for justice and peace. America has stood down enemies before, and we will do so this time. None of us will ever forget this day, yet we move forward to defend freedom and all that is good and just in our world. Thank you, good night, and God bless America.
In this next declamation, a character tries to convince another character named Brutus to join a conspiracy against a powerful leader who seems to be becoming a tyrant. In this speech, you will hear the lines of the modern young adult author John Green alludes to in the title of his book, The Fault in Our Stars, which many of you have read. Tony Yin will become this character.
An excerpt from Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. Why, man, he doth bestride that narrow world like a colossus, and we petty men walk under his huge legs and peep about to find ourselves dishonorable graves. Men at some time are masters of their fates. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves, that we are underlings. Brutus and Caesar. What should be in that Caesar? Why should that name be sounded more than yours? Write them together, yours is as fair a name. Sound them, it doth become the mouth as well. Weigh them, it is as heavy, conjure with them. Brutus will start the spirit as soon as Caesar. Now, in the names of all the gods at once, upon what me doth this our Caesar feed, that he is grown so great? Age, thou art shamed. Rome, thou hast lost the breed of noble blood. When went there by an age since the great flood, but it was fain with more than with one man? When could they say till now that talk of Rome, that her wide walks encompassed but one man? Now is it Rome indeed, and room enough, when there's in it but one only man? Oh, you and I have heard our fathers say, there was a Brutus once, that was brooked the eternal devil, and keep his state in Rome as easily as a king.
Of the many challenges that America faced in 2020, one was political entrenchment in the elections. Are we one nation? Brendan Brosnan will share the perspective of one who believes we still are.
Joe Biden election night victory speech. From November 7, 2020, by Joe Biden. Folks, the people of this nation have spoken. They've delivered us a clear victory, a convincing victory, a victory for we, the people. We won with the most votes ever casted on the presidential ticket in the history of the nation. 74 million. And what I must admit has surprised me, tonight, we're seeing people from all over this nation, all cities, in all parts of the country, indeed across the world, an outpouring of joy, of hope, of renewed faith in tomorrow bring a better day. And I'm humbled by the trust and confidence you've placed in me. I pledge to be a president who seeks not to divide, but unify. Who doesn't see red states and blue states, I believe America is all about. It's about people, and that's what my administration will be about. I sought this office to restore the soul of America, to rebuild the backbone, the middle class, and to make America respected around the world again. It's the honor of my lifetime that so many millions of Americans have voted for that vision. And now, the work of making that vision is real. It's the task of our time. You see, I believe in the possibility of this country. We're always looking ahead. Ahead to an America that's freer, more just. Ahead to an America that creates jobs with dignity and respect. Ahead to an America that cures diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's. Ahead to an America that never leaves anyone behind. Ahead to an America that never gives up, never gives in. This is a great nation. It's always been the bad guys who have against America. We're great people. This is the United States of America, and there's never been anything we haven't been able to do when we've done it together. The United States of America, ladies and gentlemen. There's never been anything we've tried and failed at. So remember, my grandpa always used to tell me when I was leaving his house, Joe, keep the faith. And my grandmother, when she was alive, she said, no, Joey, spread it. Spread the faith. God love you all. May God bless America, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.
Many of us find support, strength, and joy in the thing we call home. Home can be a defining part of our identity. People often use the expression, I feel at home, to state the things that they are comfortable with in a situation. The character in the declamation we are about to hear and see comes from an unhappy, dysfunctional home life. And as a result, feeling at home is not something he strives for. He is at times, though, able to find meaning in brief moments alone. Scarlett McMahon will share Edmund's monologue from one of the greatest American plays of the 20th century.
Excerpt from Act 4 of Longest Journey Tonight by Eugene O'Neill. You've just told me some high spots in your memories. Want to hear mine? They're all connected with the sea. Here's one. When I was on the square-head, square-rigger, bound for Buenos Aires, full moonlit trade. The old boat driving 14 knots. I lay on the bowsprit, facing astern with the water foaming to spume under me. The masts with every sail white in the moonlight towering high above me. I became drunk with the beauty and the singing rhythm of it, and for a moment I lost myself, actually lost my life. I was set free. I dissolved in the sea, became white sails and flying spray, became beauty and rhythm, became the moonlight in the ship in the high, dim-starred sky. I belonged without past or future, within peace and unity and a wild joy, within something greater than my own life, or the life of man, to life itself, to God if you want to put it that way. Then another time, on the American line, when I was lookout in the crow's nest on the dawn watch. A calm sea this time. Only a lazy groundswell and a slow, drowsy roll of the ship. The passengers asleep, none of the crew in sight, no sign of man. Black smoke pouring from the funnels behind and beneath me, dreaming, not keeping lookout. Feeling alone and above and apart, watching the dawn creep like a painted dream over the sky and sea which slept together. Then the moment of ecstatic freedom came, the peace, the end of the quest, the last harbor, the joy of belonging to a fulfillment beyond men's lousy, pitiful, greedy fears and hopes and dreams. And several other times in my life when I was swimming far out or lying alone on the beach, I've had the same experience. Became the sun, the hot sand, the green seaweed anchored to a rock swaying in the tide. Like a saint's vision of beatitude, like the veil of things as they seem drawn back by an unseen hand, and seeing the secret are the secret. For a second there is meaning. Then the hand lets the veil fall, and you are alone, lost in the fog, and you stumble on towards nowhere for no good reason. It was a great mistake my being born a man. I would have done much better as a seagull or a fish. As it is, I will always be a stranger who never feels at home, who does not really want and is not really wanted, who can never belong, who must always be a little in love with death.
The following speech by a well-known spokesperson of the Holocaust, one who survived the dehumanization of the ghetto, the loss of his family, and the horror of concentration camps, encapsulates the message he dedicated his life to conveying. Evan Schneider will share this great man's message.
The Perils of Indifference by Elie Wiesel. What is indifference? Etymologically, the word means no difference, a strange and unnatural state in which the lines blur between light and darkness, dusk and dawn, crime and punishment, cruelty and compassion, good and evil. What are its forces and inescapable consequences? Is it a philosophy? Is there a philosophy of indifference conceivable? Could one possibly view indifference as a virtue? Is it necessary at times to practice it simply to keep sanity, to live normally, to enjoy a fine meal and glass of wine while the world around us experiences a harrowing upheaval? Of course, indifference can be tempting, more than that, seductive. It is so much easier to look away from the victims. It is so much easier to avoid such rude interruptions to our work, our dreams, our hopes. It is, after all, awkward, troublesome to involve ourselves in another person's pain and despair. Yet for the person who is indifferent, his or her neighbor are of no consequence, and therefore their lives are meaningless. Their hidden or even visible anguish is of no interest. Indifference reduces the other to an abstraction. In a way, to be indifferent to that suffering is what makes the human being inhuman. Indifference, after all, is more dangerous than anger and hatred. Anger can, at times, be creative. One writes a great poem, a great symphony. One does something special for the sake of humanity because one is angry at the injustice that one witnesses. But indifference is never creative. Even hatred at times may elicit a response. You fight it, you denounce it, you disarm it. Then, indifference is not only a sin, it is a punishment. And this is one of the most important lessons in our outgoing centuries' wide-ranging experiments in good and evil.
The expectations for a woman graduating from an elite college in 1962 were different than they are today. And those graduates, over the course of their adult life, experienced significant social change. Listen to how this journalist, filmmaker, writer, and member of the class of 1962 addressed graduates of the class of 1996 from the same college she graduated from. Emily Bunn will share excerpts from this commencement address.
An excerpt from Nora Ephron's Wellesley College Commencement Address, 1996. President Walsh, trustees, faculty, friends, noble parents, and dear class of 1996. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for asking me to speak to you today. I want to tell you a little bit about my class, the class of 1962. My class went to college in the era when you got a master's degree in teaching because it was something to fall back on in the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario being that no one married you and you actually had to go to work. As a classmate said at our reunion, our education was a dress rehearsal for a life we never led. Isn't that the saddest line? We weren't meant to have futures. We were meant to marry them. We weren't meant to have politics or careers that matter, or opinions or lives. We were meant to marry them. I do want to retell one anecdote from the piece I did about my 10th Wellesley reunion. During my junior year, when I was engaged for a very short period of time, I thought I might transfer to Barnard for my senior year. I went to see my class dean for advice, and she said to me, "Let me give you some advice. You've worked so hard at Wellesley. When you marry, take a year off. Devote yourself to your husband and your marriage." Well, it was a stunning piece of advice to give me, because I'd always intended to work after college. My mother was a career woman, and all of us, her 4 daughters, grew up understanding that the question, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" was as valid for girls as for boys. Take a year off being a wife. I always wondered what I was supposed to do during that year. Iron? I repeated this story for years as proof that Wellesley wanted its graduates to be merely housewives. But I turned out to be wrong, because years later, I met another Wellesley graduate who had been as hell-bent on domesticity as I had been on a career. She went to the same dean with the same problem, and the dean said to her, "Don't have kids right away. Take a year to work." And so then I saw that what Wellesley wanted for us was to avoid the extremes, to instead that thing in the middle, a lady. Many of my classmates did exactly what they were supposed to do when they graduated from Wellesley, and some of them, by the way, lived happily ever after. But many of them didn't. All sorts of things happened that no one expected. They needed money, so they had to work. They got divorced, so they had to work. They were bored witless, so they had to work. The women's movement came along and made harsh value judgments about their lives. Judgments that caught them by surprise, because they were doing what they were supposed to be doing, weren't they? The rules had changed, and they were caught in some kind of strange time warp. They had never intended to be heroines of their own lives. They had intended to be what? First ladies, I guess. First ladies in the lives of big men. They ended up feeling like victims. They ended up, and this is really sad, thinking that their years in college were the best years of their lives. Why am I telling you this? This was a long time ago, right? Things have changed, haven't they? Yes, they have. But I mention it because I want to remind you of the undertow of this specific gravity. American society has a remarkable ability to resist change, or take any change that has taken place in an attempt to make it go away. One of the things people say to you when you're upset is don't take it personally, but listen hard to what's going on, and please, I beg you, take it personally. Above all, be the heroine of your own life, not the victim, because you don't have the same alibi my class did. This is one of the greatest achievements and mixed blessings you inherit. Unlike us, you can't say, nobody told you there were other options. Your education is a dress rehearsal for life that is yours to lead. 25 years from now, you won't have as easy a time making excuses as my class did. You won't be able to blame the deans, or the culture, or anyone else. You will have no one to blame but yourselves.
In this next declamation, a speech from a play, an angry father who wants his daughter to marry someone she doesn't want to marry because she's in love with someone else, appeals to the king of Athens. In ancient Athens, this father had the right to determine his daughter's husband, and the king agrees. This bitter opening to this play, believe it or not, is the beginning of a comedy with a happy ending. Luke Driscoll will now be that nasty father.
An excerpt from Midsummer's Night Dream by William Shakespeare. Full of vexation, come I with complaint against my child, my daughter Hermia. Stand forth, Demetrius, my noble lord. This man hath my consent to marry her. Stand forth, Lysander, my gracious duke. This man hath bewitched the bosom of my child. Thou, Lysander, thou hast given her rhymes and entertained love tokens with my daughter. Thou hast by moonlight at her window sung, with feigning voice verses of feigning love. and stolen the impression of her fantasy, with bracelets of thy hair, rings, gauds, conceits, knacks, trifles, nosegays, sweet-meant messengers of strong prevailment in unhardened youth. With cunning hast thou filled my daughter's heart, turned her obedience, which is due to me, to stubborn harshness. And my gracious Duke, be it so she will not be here before your grace. Consent to marry with Demetrius. I beg the ancient privilege of Athens. As she is mine, I may dispose of her, which either be to this gentleman, or to her death, immediately provided in that case.
Procrastination is a common obstacle many face before setting forth to accomplish tasks they aren't excited about. Because procrastination is so common, people often minimize its deleterious effects because so many people do it. In this way, they dismiss the impending deadlines, sometimes to their peril. Brooke McHugh will share a construct that will help us understand and curb our procrastination tendencies.
Inside the Mind of a Master Procrastinator by Tim Urban. I wanted to explain to the non-procrastinators of the world what goes on in the heads of procrastinators and why we are the way we are. Now, I had a hypothesis that the brains of procrastinators were actually different than the brains of other people. Both brains have a rational decision maker, but the procrastinator's brain also has an instant gratification monkey. Now, what does this mean for the procrastinator? Well, the rational decision maker will make the rational decision to do something productive, but the monkey doesn't really like that plan. So he actually takes the wheel and he says, let's read the entire Wikipedia page on the Nancy Kerrigan-Tonya Harding scandal because I just remembered that happened. Then we're going over to the fridge to see if there's anything new in there since 10 minutes ago. And after that, we're going to go on a YouTube spiral that starts with videos of Richard Feynman talking about magnets and ends much, much later with us watching interviews with Justin Bieber's mom. Now, all of this is going to take a while, so we're not really going to have any room on the schedule for any work today. Sorry. Now, what is going on here? The instant gratification monkey does not seem like a guy behind a wheel. He lives entirely in the present moment, has no memory of the past, no knowledge of the future, and only cares about two things: easy and fun. Well, turns out the procrastinator has a guardian angel. Someone who's always looking down on him and watching over him in his darkest moments. Someone called the panic monster. Now, the panic monster is dormant most of the time, but he suddenly wakes up anytime there's danger of public embarrassment, a career disaster, or some other scary consequence. And importantly, he's the only thing the monkey is terrified of. This entire situation with the three characters, this is the procrastinator system. It's not pretty, but in the end, it works. Everything I've talked about today, the examples I've given, they all have deadlines. And when there's deadlines, the effects of procrastination are contained to the short term because the panic monster gets involved. But there's a second kind of procrastination that happens in situations when there is no deadline. So if you wanted a career as a self-starter, something about art, something entrepreneurial, those things don't have deadlines at first because nothing's happening. Not until you've gone out and done the hard work to get momentum. There's also all kinds of things outside of your career that don't involve any deadlines, like seeing your family, or taking care of your health and exercising, or working on your relationship, getting out of a relationship that isn't working. And if the procrastinator's only mechanism of doing these hard things is the panic monster, that's a problem. Because in all of these non-deadline situations, the panic monster doesn't wake up. He has nothing to show up for. So the effects of procrastination, they're not contained. They just extend outward forever. And it's this long-term, kind of procrastination that can be the source of a huge amount of long-term unhappiness and regrets. Some of you may have a healthy relationship with deadlines, but remember, the monkey's sneakiest trick is when the deadlines aren't there. We all need to think about what we're really procrastinating on, because everyone is procrastinating on something. We need to stay aware of the instant gratification monkey, and that's a job for all of us. It's a job that should probably start today. Well, not today, but sometime soon. Thank you.
Before a final applause, we should thank a few people. First off, Mr. Alosa for his CFA guidance. You may applaud. A bunch of other folks who've really been helpful. Mrs. Hammond, Mr. Weish, Mr. Kahn, Ms. Gilman for their technical support and advice. Mr. Sabelli, the English Department Chair, for his guidance of and vision for the English Department, and Mr. Toussaint, who's helped us with prompting today. We also should thank faculty, staff, and administration for supporting the declamation, for parents who have listened and encouraged their children as they learn their pieces, and finally, to the efforts of all the students who worked hard in their declamations and helped their classmates with theirs. So I'm about to run through the last reprise here. Middle school students, I have one announcement for you. After we have our final applause, I would like you to stay in your seats. So perhaps for the 36th declamation celebration, we can come together again as a whole school. But whatever the circumstances we are thrown, the show will go on. We hope to see you next year. Until then, remember where you started, where you are, and who you're coaching, and where you're going to be. Your identity is not something that should be imposed upon you. Share what we are free to do as well as what we are free from. Be true to one another. Know that others have walked through the valley of the shadow of death for us. We are, at some times, masters of our fates. Don't just keep the faith, spread it. Make your home a place where people are loved. Avoid the seduction of indifference. To the extent you can, make your education a rehearsal for the life you want to lead. Fathers aren't always right. Beware the instant gratification monkey. To all the declaimers, well